Hello, and this is the day that the Lord has made, and we're here to rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to Hope TV. I'm E. Dewey Smith, and I'm so excited, incredibly excited, that you've carved out a portion of your day to spend with us here at the Hope TV. It means the world that you're here, and I thank God for you, and you. And do me a favor, won't you drop us a line and let us know the city and the state and the country from whence you're viewing. We take your viewership very seriously here at the Hope TV, and we're trying to provide you with daily doses of hope. And your demographics help us to create content that may be unique to your specific areas. We take that very seriously. And thank you so very much for being a part. And drop me a line. Give me your name, city, state, and country. And also, if you're watching through a platform that will allow you to subscribe, to like, to comment, or to share, would you please help us? Every time you subscribe, you can get notifications as to when new content is uploaded. Your likes and your comments help us with our engagements on social media, and it really significantly increases our algorithms, puts us in a great position for expansion. And then most importantly, your shares. Your shares are paramount to help us to expand. So why don't you become a Hope TV ambassador right quick and go ahead and share that link with 5 people. If you're on Facebook and you have a watch party, share it with your friends. If you're on IG Live, you can share that link. If you're on YouTube or Facebook or even the website, you can share those links. Even Periscope, you can share with friends. And those who are watching through Apple TV and Roku and Twitch and Amazon, thank you. You may not be able to share a link on those particular ones, but you still can help us get the word out. Listen, I want to thank you. We started Hope TV on March 19th, 2020. And actually, I call it my meager attempt to stay in touch with the members of our local church here, Greater Travelers Rest, with the House of Hope. I thought it would be something we could do to just stay in contact with them for a few weeks throughout the pandemic while everything got back normal. You never could have told me a year later, from March 2020 to March 2021, that we've had over 120 million views of our content via the cumulative platforms. It's mind-boggling to this day. Over 120 million views via the cumulative platforms, and to that we say to God be the glory. So thank you for your support. Continue to check out that Hope TV website, thehopetv.com. Check it out. You can stream all the programming there live. We have about 26 programs that are now being streamed through the platform, with 2 more. We just added one, Tea and Worship, last week with Mignon Bolton and Corey Butts. We've got 2 more shows that are coming on board in a few weeks. So to God be the glory. So if you want some positive content for the family, we have one for children now with Miss Kim on Saturday mornings. Just wide cadre of programs for your empowerment, for your hope, and your uplift. So to God be the glory. I appreciate you being a part. Today is very special for me because I think it's important sometimes that you look back, and we're looking back in our archives and seeing our progression over the past year. And one of our first broadcasts, one of the very first, March of 2020, was on the subject of mental health, and we really wanted to tackle that subject. Even though we've been talking about mental health at our congregation and different things for several years now, we really wanted to deal with it. And we invited a young man who grew up in our church, native of California, grew up in Greater Travelers Rest, and received his schooling, and just has done a stellar job in terms of mental health from a clinical perspective, but also as a Christian man who can talk from, who can speak that language as well. So he's bilingual, if you let me use that phrase. And just an amazing gift to our congregation, to his practice, to his clients, really into our world. And we're going to come back today and just continue this conversation, coronavirus 1 year later, and where we are right now. So I'm happy to have with us Dr. Gideon Winfrey, who's of Valiant Therapy, and was on one of our first shows when we first got started. Welcome back, Dr. Winfrey. How are you, sir?
Oh, well, good brother. How are you?
Yeah, outstanding. So good to see you, and I'm glad that you're looking well. And I know you and the family. That means the wife is taking good care of you, and I know that you and the boys are doing outstanding. That's awesome. Yeah,
Absolutely.
tell us a yeah, tell us. You know, you came on a year ago, and absolutely a year ago, and I need to tell you this. I've spoken to so many pastors and leaders over the world who've utilized the template in some of our conversations. We were at the very forefront of this conversation, and I said it very humbly because we just trying to figure it out. And a lot of pastors and leaders have literally used this template, this conversation, to integrate into their ministries. And I want to thank you for that. You came on and, you know, it just willingly gave and shared of your expertise to help people. And there are people that you will never know that you helped until you get the glory. So I want to talk about a couple of things. You know, what do you see a year later in terms of this whole coronavirus pandemic and the mental health aspects? I want to see how has it impacted you personally.
Wow. Oh, man, Pastor, that's a loaded question, but I can always count on you to give me the loaded question because I'm going to give it back to you as a loaded answer, good brother. Um, the first word that came to mind, Pastor, in my spirit was beneficial brokenness.
Mm,
Beneficial brokenness is what I've
wow.
seen in the past year, professionally and personally. Seeing so many people that were really walking every day, going through the motions mentally, going through the motions emotionally, barely just surviving and having no idea, and really being able to have the layers stripped of comforts and luxuries, and really just exposing where value systems were and a lot of things that people thought had to be, they realized did not have to be.
Mm, wow. Beneficial brokenness. That's what what a phrase, what a book title, what a movie title, song title. I mean, and it's so apropos. Funerals by Zoom,
Mhm,
saying goodbye to loved ones via FaceTime,
mhm,
um, not being able to comfort dying friends and loved ones. You know, funerals with 20 people at them.
mhm,
Trying to find a way to bring closure.
mhm,
Um, Students and teachers that are struggling significantly.
mhm,
Um, but to see the numbers of people who've been inundated, you know,
mhm,
but for the first time are saying, I can't do this. I've
mhm.
been carrying these things, I've been leaking and hemorrhaging for a long time. What do you say to the people who are out there who've been taught to be strong and who have not taken advantage of services? I mean, you've been swamped and overwhelmed. What do you say to the people who are still trying to carry it, still going through the motions, have not taken care of their mental health? What do you say to those persons?
Well, Pastor, you and I have been on this sojourn for a long time, and I have certain phrases that I always come back to, particularly when you say certain words, it triggers those phrases. And one of my phrases that I often use is, um, when people talk about being strong, we're not talking about being strong, we're talking about being real.
Mm,
And to those individuals that are trying to still scurry based off of projective strength, because that's really what it is in this pandemic, it's projective strength, the strength that you're trying to project that you don't have. But in being real and honest about where you are, I said this ironically this week to my team of practitioners. Your treatment is only as effective as your truth. And
mm,
so when you talk about
gee,
your honesty about a situation, that really leverages just how much progress you're going to make. So if you want to go, particularly vaccine phase of the pandemic, if you want to go and just be in this rush to get back to normalcy, that is a formula for not just regression, but unbeneficial brokenness. So people just being honest about where they are emotionally, where they are spiritually. that's really where the strength lies, is in your honesty. So as I just said, your treatment is only effective as your truth. So people being able to be honest about the conversations, and that's something that's really paramount at this point, Pastor. This pandemic has impacted people in so many ways that um, there are required conversations that have to be had, parenting conversations, relationship conversations, marriages, being able to say, hey, this is how I feel, and being able to be in a safe place to be able to say that without fear of being secluded or fear of being rejected. And so it all just comes down to truth, because that's really where your strength lies.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that. About It's ironic because we haven't had this conversation about this whole thing with the parenting conversations.
Hmm.
Yesterday, and you know you're part of the church. You know we try to minister to everybody. We started a youth basketball league, you know, AAU basketball league about 8, 9 years ago, and so we have anywhere from 250 to 300 kids in our program 40 weeks out of the year on the weekends.
Hmm.
Well, long story short, yesterday got word yesterday morning that one of the kids who just was at the gym Sunday, 14 years of age, right, you know, ran the cab. I don't know if he was with someone, but long story short, he decided to steal a car, jumped in the car only to discover a 1 year old was in the back seat. So
Hmm.
this kid's been in our program since he was 6.
Hmm.
He was just there Sunday.
Hmm.
And, you know, not really, you know, involved in basketball, not really going to school. I just think many of them who on the margins already, you know,
Hmm.
I've talked about, you know, that how those educational margins and expectations, and sometimes teachers are not, you know, that we can find some who are not speaking life into you, you know, speaking death. But I think this kid's got disconnected and bored. What do we say to the parents who may be dealing with kids right now? You yourself, you know, have a teenager. How do we keep them engaged during this season so that type of fiasco doesn't happen like with the young man yesterday?
One of the key things that I've had this conversation with so many of my families and patients that I work with. Again, I've seen just the impact of this in so many different areas. But the blessing in this is that it challenges us to press the reset button. I remember we said that when we started this, when we did this a year ago, that any transition for that matter gives you the right to press the reset button. And when we press the reset button, it gives us the opportunity to look at everything that we've done, every routine, everything that we thought we knew, and be able to reevaluate it. But in order to do that, we have to take ownership and responsibility for what our circumstances are. Trying to maintain what we thought this was prior to is really unrealistic and is completely counterproductive. And to my parents, what I've challenged them to do is be able to have these conversations with, first of all, your God, yourself, and your children. Now, I believe in the order and the hierarchy. A lot of times, what I've done as a parent, my prompting of God tends to get me up like 3 a.m. We got this 2:58 a.m. and 3:59 a.m. thing going, and that's really when my house is the quietest. But me and God, we just go, we just have the adult conversations, being the head of my house, and being the covering, and that's when I just really tell them everything that's on my mind and on my heart, and just being transparent. And what I found is that prayer for me, and again, I promote this in my practice, being a faith-based practitioner. Prayer for me is where I filter out the poison of daily absorptions that I have through my practice or through life circumstances. And I put myself in a position to be able to say the needed things that need to be said, but without the poison that can come from it. And so, as a parent, it allows you to see it through God's eyes and be able to just get that daily check in as far as, okay, where are we in our household? And then having these conversations with our children. In my home, we've been blessed with vocations that allow us to be at home. So we've been pretty much here outside of the minor, going back and forth and whatnot. But check our children. Where y'all at? Let's be honest. Let's be real. Just going to school. Also tapering. How much information that your kids have exposure to, asking them their understanding. So really, um, going from just listen to what I tell you as a parent to pulling them into the conversation as far as what's really your understanding of this, because this is going to be something that impacts you, all of us, for years to come. So when you have those conversations as parents, I believe that, ironically, something that God put in my spirit, probably for this show, something that God put in my spirit earlier this week, Pastor, he said that I would not allow any harm or mistreatment to come to anyone that's working on my behalf and in my will. And so
Mm.
that's something that really charged me as far as making sure that I'm in alignment and open to all of the different responsibilities that I have as a husband, as a parent. And so, um, when you don't assume that your children feel a certain kind of way, you're able to really minister and touch those parts of them, and then your children. You know your children, and then just being able to, um, speak to that spirit that may be brewing or bubbling. And a lot of times when you address something as a parent, um, once that spirit has been exposed, it tends to go somewhere else. As I tell my parents, it just kind of repackages itself somewhere else. But that particular thing can be addressed. So in that situation, I see a young man that just really had the lull of just being idle, and then maybe someone just not checking in for whatever reason, not necessarily being critical, but just that daily check-in. I think that's something that parents have to keep in mind. It requires a daily, several times a day checking in. I mean, at this point, these kids have been in school virtually for a year. Is something that nobody was prepared for. And then the transition. Now, remember in our initial recording, we talked a lot about how, because we didn't know information, the anxiety that came from that. Well, another thing that sparks anxiety is lack of consistency. So you got some kids that transition back to school with this anticipation of it being the way that it was, only to go in there and out of a school capacity of 1,600, there's 200 kids there. So that had a very apocalyptic feel to them. So now you opened up a whole
Wow.
another dynamic of mental health dynamics. And yeah, the kids are back in school, but their mind is being challenged in a way that it's never had before. And so just that checking in is paramount daily, texting them, hey, you cutting the TV off, doing fun activities. So just doing something that, if they have to give up one part of their adolescent years or their childhood, you have to give them something in lieu of that. You can't just take something from them and expect them to figure it out, and then you give that idle space and time, and then you have situations such as this unfortunate situation with this young man where something took that space. So we have to fill that space with our love and honest conversations, and allowing them to be transparent and educating them through this process. And that gives us the ability to keep our hands on them and keep spiritual eyes on them as well.
That's great. That's such great insight because I seniors in high school. My heart is just going out to them the past 2 years. You know how it is. You work all of your childhood career education to get to this point, and you're supposed to celebrate that last year and the senior trips and the proms and all the things that go along with that and the graduation exercises to have all that stuff, just taken from me. And I think that's a great suggestion because I don't think people have thought about that. How do we add to them when they've experienced such a great deficit? That's a great point.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let me ask you this, because I want to say a word too about, you talked about being home and being able to do a
Hmm.
lot of what you do at home. What do you say to the
Hmm.
teachers who, I didn't realize so many of them were struggling mentally?
Hmm.
Um, those who have their own kids, DeKalb County, Cobb County, um, have already, they're going back to school.
Hmm.
Um, some of the teachers in DeKalb County were protesting, just feeling unsafe.
Hmm.
What word do you say to those teachers who are watching about how to process this for them? Those who have kids trying to navigate their own kids' educations, trying to teach in a world they weren't prepared for. So what do you say to them today?
Pastor, again, we're always in sync, and it's amazing because I've had a significant amount of educators that have come to me for counseling and therapy, and the stories are all the same: the anxiety, the feeling of helplessness, hope, abandonment. Um, So the first thing that I would recommend to any, particularly our more so being based out of Decatur, Georgia, a lot of the teachers, great healthcare plan. Most of them I think is Blue Cross Blue Shield. Utilize your mental health benefits, especially right now. Find you somebody to talk to, and just be honest and transparent about you feel. My educators that come to see me are some of the most um, heavy laden individuals. But by
Mm.
God's grace, they all have made significant progress just by having a place to just process how they feel. They can say really how they feel about their principles. And I'm just transparent, how they feel about their principles, how they feel about their leadership, the way it's impacting their marriage and their children. So the first thing is, you know, utilize your benefits to get the help that's right there. If you're going into a situation such as this, and you have benefits that allow you to have that, take it. Take it. There are people like myself that are available who want to have these conversations because it allows you to be able to to unleash and unload that daily anxiety that you're taking in. So that's the first thing I would recommend. But what I've shared with my educators that come to see me is after they process, now let's look at being honest about how you feel about this situation. And in their honesty, they're able to take ownership of their emotions, but then they're also able to strategize how to leverage this in their favor. As far as let's look at options as far as what are we in control of? We are in control of how we interact with other people. I've had to have conversations about how to keep themselves mentally safe, not just physically, but mentally safe. And so they put certain safeguards in place, certain people that they identify with, and certain people that they don't identify with, their social groups that they have at school, and just reminding them of what's important to them, how to keep themselves safe, but then also utilizing the support system that you have. Uh, some of my educators have had to reach out to family members that they were, for lack of a better term, even estranged with because they've seen that, okay, there's a support system here that I have to utilize for the sake of my children. So thinking outside the box in terms of what you can do, but then also processing, is this the season for you to be an educator? Let's have that conversation. Looking at your value system and saying, okay, if you do have choices, nothing is absolute. I've been telling my educators that you have to return to work, yes, have to stay in this place. So just kind of strategize. So do we need an exit plan? Do we need an exit plan? What are some other attributes that we can look at? Do we have PTO time? How close are we to retirement? Like all the options that we evaluate actually has a therapeutic benefit because it's letting them know that they have options. And a lot of times when people see that they have options, it takes the anxiety away of something that they feel has been forced on them. So that would be what I would share with our educators, and just to thank them for what they do. And just if nobody else says thank you, Pastor Smith, myself, we thank y'all for what you do. I'm the product of a DeKalb County School, Southwest DeKalb High School. I would not be where I am without public school. But I also understand the importance of the fact that people need to be recognized that they matter, that you have families, and all those things are important. So even though you may not right now be feeling that, it's important just to hear that from individuals. You all educators have been heroes since day one. It doesn't take a pandemic to say that you all are essential. You've been essential, and we recognize that. And so I hope and pray that you allow individuals to minister to you, to just give you a portion of the return that you've deposited in countless lives.
Man, that is so incredibly rich. One of the things I want you to talk about, I mean, this when I'm talking to you, it's just like I'm a sponge. It's just so rich and so helpful. Um, that's still a lot of fear right now. You know, I'm talking to my oldest son and just, a variety of people. I mean, he's a sophomore in college at Morehouse, and so they're talking about going back to campus. He's made the decision that he's not going to take the vaccine. He's black college. All the conspiracy theories and distrust of the government. Understandably so. Same time talking to some senior citizens, my mother-in-law who's 85, 86, who wants to take the vaccine to get some sense of normalcy. Others who don't. Teachers are afraid to go back to school, and some wanted to go back, but didn't have access to the vaccine. So that's a prevalence of fear that's cross generational. You know, how do you what do you say to people still battling elements of fear, even 1 year later? Even though we have more knowledge, more information, but people are still fearful of vaccine, fearful of going back to work, fearful of different strands, distrust of the government, you know, fearful of going back to church, going back to work, fearful of being around people, those who still stuck in the home. You know, what kinds of words would you share with those people who still battling those elements of fear?
Well, the first thing that I would do, Pastor, whenever the concept of fear comes up, I think the first thing to do is to ask ourselves exactly what we're afraid of, because we can.
Hmm,
Fear has a immobilizing impact on us, and I think sometimes we don't even recognize when we're frozen. Um,
hmm,
we kind of enter into a state of just impasse, and we are aware, but we're not conscious. And that's
hmm,
what fear is. It takes that consciousness away. So when we talk consciousness, we're talking about the ability to connect the feeling to to the emotion and to our state of existence, for lack of a better term. And so, first thing that I would do is just have that conversation with myself. What is it that I'm afraid of? And in that answer often lies the beginning steps of how we move from the fear. So if I'm afraid of the vaccine, to be able to first complete that sentence, I'm afraid of the vaccine. Then let's go a step further. Why are you afraid of the vaccine? So each time that we process it, actually what we do is we take that fear and we turn it into small episodes of empowerment, because we're moving progressively. It's actually a process that I call it inverted processing. And what inverted processing is that when you realize the thing that is taking you in, to get out of it, you do the opposite of how you got there. So you work your way out of it by doing the opposite of what got you there. So as you take each step and you're asking these questions and you're having these small episodes of empowerment, you're starting to get an understanding of really what your bubble is, of what is going to take for you to feel safe. Or when we say safe, we're not necessarily saying safe as far as um, being impervious to certain circumstances, but empowering yourself to make a decision that you can live with. And that's what I tell people therapy is. Therapy, people say, well, as a therapist, you give people answers. No, I don't. All I do is make them aware of their choices and
hmm,
empower them to make the choices that they can live with. So when you come to a point and a conclusion that you can make a choice that you can live with, then that's when there's a sense of fear, because fear can't dwell in a place where there's empowerment. And so
hmm,
you can get to the point to say that I don't trust the vaccine because of the Tuskegee experiment or because of how I feel about the government. But once you get to the point that you can say that and it's a statement and a declaration, at that point that empowerment allows you to be able to say that I'm not fearful for something that I feel like I have no control over. At this point, I have ownership of it, and it's my ownership that no longer allows me to be fearful, because I can then move based off of what my conclusions have been. So a lot of times this happens in a series of sessions, because a lot of times it's just that raw emotion that they just need a place to sort it. But once they sort it and start putting the pieces together, the fear isn't there anymore. What ends up happening is, here's my declarative statement on what I choose to stand on. So that way I can move based on, I don't want to take the vaccine because I don't trust the government. And because I don't trust the government, because of the Tuskegee experiment, as a result, then I will continue to mask up, do social distancing, and wait a little bit longer. I want to do some research. And that's what I always tell people, that I can always tell when a person really has a strong conviction about where they stand, is because when people have a strong conviction, Pastor, about where they stand, they don't need to have a long explanation. I can always tell when people are unsure because they want to go on this long explanation, and they're trying to get you to convince them or be convinced by what they're saying. But when you're sure on something, you can nail that thing in about two sentences and stand on that. And from an apologetics regard, you can take people's feedback and still stand on where you are. So that's how we tend to process fear, at least I do, from a therapeutic process of regard, to get them to the point where they can stand on it and make whatever decision they make without having any anxiety about it because they've empowered themselves by ownership.
Man, this is so incredibly rich. So sometimes you have to unpack that fear, and that's
Have
one
to.
of the things that you're doing in therapy. Have you found that a lot of people come to you because of fear?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's immobilizing. It's losing sleep, making other things that was manageable now become, and fear is contagious. So it's gone from a fear of this, virus to now a fear of even going to the grocery store, a fear going to the mailbox, or um, um, even how people that may have to go to work and come back, before you can hug your loved ones, you got to shower down and all that. So all that is a fear uh, that hasn't been addressed, and it just impacts other areas. It makes people apprehensive about even being 6 feet around other people. It's just all that because it just hasn't been that ownership. But once they own it, then at that point, you see those reactions as tools versus torment.
Wow, that's great. Now, I'm out of time already. Gee whiz, I need you to come back and finish part two of this. Can you
I'm
do
there,
that for me?
brother. I'm there.
Do
I
me a
got
favor.
time. I'm
Let the
here.
people know how they can cut. Those who are watching right now, you're on this show. You're the first therapist we had on this show, first professional mental health professional on this show because I trust you and I've seen how you've helped me and helped so many others, and I highly recommend your services and who you are. So how can people contact you? And those who need some help, how can they contact you?
Well, I could be contacted. Go to my website, Valiant Therapy, all one word, VALIANT Therapy, THERAPY, valianttherapy.com. Go and go to contacts, and it comes to me directly. There's nobody else that's going to speak on my behalf. And actually, when people the website, it pings me, and I always like to say a word of encouragement. So I automatically respond if it's within the hours I do. So I'm available. Just go to the website, email me, and let's have a conversation about what we can do to empower you in this 1 year into this pandemic. And this is going to be going on for a while. So after a year, if you're still struggling, to be honest and transparent, it's by choice at this point because people are here and available. I know, Pastor, you've been doing a great job as far as feeding them spiritually. And, I've always said, you tell them what the destination is, and I'll help them walk that walk to get there. So I'm here.
And you're able to do it virtually. You can do virtual therapy.
Yes. Yes, doing virtual therapy, which is, to be honest, Pastor, I don't think it's going to go back to face. But the beautiful blessing in this is that God always has a ram in the bush. So even in this pandemic, a lot of things are being done virtually. And what I found is that the quality of care, if your heart is there, it's no compromise in that. So it's just as much connectivity because the heart can't be muted because of distance. If what's in the heart is going to be in the heart, and so there are provisions here virtually, and so anybody who doesn't want it literally just doesn't want it at this point.
Wow, listen, fam, you've been listening to One on One with Dr. Gideon Winfrey, and his information is on the screen right now. Those of you who, whether it's your parent, whether you're single, whether you're a college student, whether you are married, whether you are going through grief, whatever your needs are, if you're not feeling yourself, and it doesn't mean something is wrong with you because you face trauma and need some answers. Just like we have doctors for the body, dentists for the teeth, beauticians and barbers for our hair, we need somebody to help us with our souls. And there's nobody better who I can recommend than Dr. James Gideon Winfrey. So his information is on the screen, Valiant Therapy. Please reach out to him ASAP. If you know somebody that you can benefit from his services, please share this link. Write the information down. Share it, share it, share it, share it. He's going to be a man who offers services that's going to help be empowering and transformative and liberating for you. So God bless you, my brother. We gotta come back and do part two because I didn't finish. I got some more things to ask. And thanks for consenting. So, fam, you've been watching One on One today with Dr. Gideon Winfrey Dr. Gideon Winfrey and yours truly. Hope you've been empowered by it. Please share this link with someone that you may know can benefit from it. And tune in next week, same time, same station, same handles. We're going to be back to finish part two of this conversation. It's very, very helpful, very, very needful. And in the words of John DeGale's, beloved, I wish above all that you prosper and be in good health as your soul prospers. Until next time, remember, you'll be good to God, God be good to you. Until next time, peace. Take care.